Welcome to Impact and Influence, the podcast for real estate business owners and professionals who are ready to make a bigger impact, scale, have greater sustainability, and increase their influence. This series opens the door to the sharpest minds across the industry, including agency owners, advisors, and trusted partners who share real-world insights and lessons learnt. These are short, practical conversations designed to save you time, sharpen your strategy, and help you build a business by design, not by default. If you're responsible for growth, profit, client experience, leadership, recruitment, or retention, this podcast is your go-to for smarter choices and more decisive leadership. It's proudly presented by REGROWTH. We are a coaching and consulting business for the real estate arena. We help you build on capability, connection, and curiosity.
Welcome to our next episode of Impact and Influence. We are joined today by Natasha MacDonald from Harris Tripp in West. Welcome, Tash. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Lauren. I'm super excited to be chatting with you today.
We have so much to cover in a short period of time. But for those who don't know you,
yes,
I love hearing the story of your background because it's not real estate like so many of us who kind of land in it whilst you grew up around real estate.
Yes.
Can you tell me how you came to be in your role today?
Yes, I would say that I am an accidental real estate professional. So I very much accidentally landed here despite being surrounded by a lot of real estate. My background is in marketing, events and sponsorship. And so I spent 12 years in that space. And in the latter half of that career, I was in London for 10 years. I was working in agencies, working on big brands, having fun doing it. But then I came home, had a young family, and I was at home with young kids and needed a bit of mental stimulation and some adult company. And my brother was working with my dad at the time. And I rang him and I just sort of said, you know, have you got anything for me to do? I need a break from the kids or I need something else in my life. And it was fortuitous that they were going through a rebrand at the time. We were moving away from a franchise that we'd been part of for a very long time.
Yeah.
And we were going through an office renovation or about to start an office renovation. And I thought, oh my goodness, what will that look like if those boys, you know, my dad and my brother managed that?
You were there.
Yeah. And I said, well, that's, you know, that sounds like it's right up my alley.
Yeah.
So, you know, tap me in. And so I went in there thinking very much it was sort of a, you know, 18-month sort of little project. And I looked at it as a project. And it was really great because it gave me creative license to have like real involvement in what the brand looked like and moving forward and leveraging some of our legacy and history. And so that was really fun. And the office had not been touched in over 40 years. There's a lot of,
I've got a picture of what it looked like.
Timber paneling. There was some flapping doors that you walked through. That was very special, very wild, wild west. And so it was really fun to be involved in that creative project. And I think while I was there, I was looking at the business and thinking, well, you know, we're leveling up the brand, we're leveling up how the office looks like, but what about the business?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I sort of started thinking, you know, how is this running? Where's the process around here? I think we only had tech. The only tech we had in place at the time was REST.
How long ago was this again? Sorry.
This was 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So there wasn't much tech in place. And I just think I saw a huge opportunity to elevate the business in addition to sort of, you know, we're spending all this money on a rebrand and a refresh of the office or a massive renovation, I should say. It wasn't a refresh. The bills would suggest massive renovation is the appropriate term. And I just thought there was a massive opportunity to level up the business. And so it wasn't something that was sort of, you know, my dad and my brother said, will you do this? And or something that I said, I think I should do this. It just sort of happened.
Yep.
So yes, accidentally here 10 years later.
And your role now?
Yes. So it's evolved over time.
Yes, I can imagine.
It started off very much in the marketing space and it's evolved over time so that I very much manage business operations now as managing director. And I've just recently this year taken on the role of sales manager.
Oh, have you now?
Yes.
That's an exciting space for you to be in.
A bit different. So my brother was previously the sales manager. And I think, you know, over time, for all listing and selling principles, it gets really difficult to try and manage running the business, running people, and then running, you know, listing and selling campaigns. And I think you always prioritize, as you rightly should, the listing and selling. And then there's probably just not enough time for, the people side of things or the management of the team. And so with me, I've got a bit more flexibility to give people what they need when they need it. So I make myself very available for that. And I think people also underestimate the thinking time needed to go into the growth of a team. So what you can do to level up the team. And I think probably that, we lacked that a little bit previously just because we weren't dedicating that time to thinking, how can we level up? What else can we do? Where are the 1%?
Oh, I love that. So how has the team grown since you joined the business?
So the team across the business has grown both from a sales point of view and a management point of view. I think one of the things that you think is going to happen when you start or one of the things I thought was going to happen when I started in this business is it'd all be very easy and it'd be a really linear journey and I'd make the changes that I wanted and it will all happen very quickly. And I think what I've learned over time is that, it won't happen overnight, but it will happen. But it certainly takes much longer for those things to happen. So I think what I've also learned over time is that, the people are the most important part to the business and that hiring the right people, is the only approach really. And that does take time. And I think it takes time because what we've learned as well, in order to get people that, align with our values, that grow with the business, it's almost better hiring that junior staff member and training them up. So that they really understand our brand and our values and how we operate and our expectations. And that's had the most success for us, but it's a much longer journey doing things that way. So we've grown our property management business considerably since I joined. It's probably doubled, if not more, in size. And similarly, our sales team, I still call it's small but mighty. So it has grown over time, but we've got really high performing agents in our team and sort of that's the end. They're high performing and then there's none that are sort of, less than that. So, we'd love to grow it more, but again, it's really important to have the right people in play.
So I've got two questions from that. When you look after recruitment,
yes, alongside my general manager. Yes, we both look after recruitment.
And so when you're looking for someone that's really based, like you want to align the values, knowing that you will give them the space to grow and help them with the skill set side of things, what are your kind of favourite questions to ask in an interview to really uncover that?
I think asking people where they see themselves in that 3 to 5 year space to really get an understanding. Have they thought about that? What they've learnt from their past role. I think that's always an important one.
I love that.
And I guess just getting a gut feel has been really valuable for me. I know not everyone, it's hard to impart your gut feel on other people, but Maria and I, because we interview a lot of people, I think you learn over time just through interviewing people, you can pick up on those cues that you ordinarily, might not get through a verbal question. To see whether they're really interested. I think the other thing we've learned over time is not to chase someone for a role and to be.
That's interesting.
Because I think you need to be, it's a partnership at the end of the day. So our recruitment approach is to be very transparent. So we're always very honest and open about what the role entails. We don't sell a dream. If you sell a dream, someone's coming in and they're leaving pretty quickly. And then you've wasted, a recruitment fee. You've wasted your time. No one's happy. The team aren't happy because someone else has left. So our approach is to just be very transparent, very open about what the role entails. Be really open and demonstrate through, the people we've got in our business, how you can transition through the business. And how you can almost create your own opportunities, which we've done for many of our staff. People that have started in sales and now are in marketing, or people that have started in property management that are now in BDM and then sales, or, PM to operations. There's a pathway for everyone, because I think it's about, making sure people are continuing to grow so that they stay. But if you chase someone for a role, they have to want it as much as you want to give it.
I like that. I think that's very relevant to our industry, and and hiring, not necessarily when you have to, but almost before that time, I think is so important too. So you're not chasing somebody and thinking, I just need someone, so I'll take the next person that comes along.
And we always say it's 80% attitude when we're hiring and 20% skill, because you can train the skill. You cannot train the attitude. And it's the attitude that typically see someone come undone in a business. You know, it's the, you know, not caring enough, not putting the effort in, you know, that's when you know it's game over.
Absolutely.
So I think attitude and energy are so important in a business. And so, you know, I look for that when people come in for interviews, because it's surprising. You'd think that would be 101. Come to an interview, put your best foot forward, bring your best self.
Think so.
But it's not actually the case. So that's really interesting. But I think as well, waiting and not hiring if you don't find the right people. Yeah. Because if you hire the wrong person, if you know that you're just rush hiring, I know that that's hard. The stopgap's hard, but it doesn't serve your business well and will ultimately end badly for, you know, you and the business.
It affects the rest of the team, doesn't it? And usually I find it unravels not the person you've hired, but also there's somebody else around you
100%.
That's impacted by that negatively. So, yes. You mentioned your general manager.
Yes.
Can you tell me what does the leadership team look like in your business?
Yes.
And how do you support each other and keep each other accountable?
Yes. So it's the three of us. So it's my brother, Jay, my general manager, Maria Packus, who's started, I think she started a couple of months after me. So we've worked together for the last 10 years. She's just been made the first non-family member director of Harris Trip. So that's very exciting.
That's very exciting.
And then myself. And I would say that Maria and I probably work most closely together on the business. And then Jay feeds in more on a quarterly basis, just because he's focused on his listing and selling and that's the priorities. But for the big pieces, he's obviously there and inputting. Maria and I, it's very much a daily, you know, catch up and focus and, you know, we've got quarterly priorities. We do our business planning session at the end of the year. We break it down into our quarters. You know, we're very much focused on, you know, we've got our financial quarters that we work towards. We've got our quarterly priorities. And then we have, you know, everything peppered in between that happens that keeps you off track and that gets you back on track.
Yeah.
So we business plan every year. We've got, you know, some big priorities that we're focused on because I think it's about, there's so many things going on. You've got to break it down in priorities.
Absolutely.
And then you've got to break it down again into what's this quarter's priorities so that you can actually get some traction, because it's easy, I think, when you're working because essentially the management team's working in the business, let's be real.
Yeah.
So unless you've got the time to have that strategic thinking time and work on the business, if you don't have the priorities, it's easy to get sidetracked.
Well, 12 months goes past and you're still working on the priorities from...
Like we're almost halfway through this year and it feels like we were at kickoff sessions
correct.
A week ago.
Correct, but it's the implementation, isn't it? Because that impacts the team.
Definitely.
In that project space too, and they look up to you to get things done.
Yes.
You get distracted and then all of a
and
sudden...
I think as well, we're very big on being transparent about what our priorities are in the business so people can keep us accountable.
Yeah.
So certainly with our sales team, we have a big kickoff session. We were very clear on what the 3 priorities were for the year.
Yeah.
And then we talk about those in our monthly, you know, we have sales meeting every week, but we have a bigger monthly sales meeting. We talk about where we are with our priorities and, that keeps us accountable. And say with property management, we're really good at, you know, identifying what we do it more on a monthly basis, like what's the monthly focus? Because again, if you focus on too many things in property management, you get no traction.
Correct.
So this month or for the next 3 months, we've got our one big priority.
Yeah, love that.
And everyone's focused on that.
Yeah, awesome. You mentioned earlier around culture in your business, and I know that's something that you work really hard on. How do you keep your team connected?
Yeah, I think culture is something that for us has been very considered and something that we're continuing to focus on because we realise how important it is. Creating a culture that people want to work in is super important.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just happen like anything in business. You've got to, you know, think of ways to keep that, you know, fresh and everyone connected.
Yeah.
I think we're really great at having a core team internally that comes up with some really great initiatives for the staff. We had a survivor style challenge earlier in the year. And it, you know, the teams are split up into, you know, cross office teams that you don't work with day to day. So you get to spend time with people that you don't, you know, work with on an everyday basis. And so you get to form that bond and that connection. So, you know, the survivor challenge, you really see who the competitive ones are in the office. And
yes.
I'm not saying whether I'm competitive or not. I'll leave that to, you know, everyone's
Watch the socials and you might take it.
Yeah. So we do those each quarter. I think we do some really fun activations around, key events throughout the year. Halloween is very big in our office.
It is incredible. For anyone who doesn't know what you do, like you just have to look at your social posts around that time and blown away, like so impressive what you do in that space. Yeah,
so theming of our windows is a very, very big thing. We're situated on a high street that has lots of restaurants around, that we've got a school thoroughfare that, lots of school kids walk past. We've got the community fountain space and a big IGA behind us and lots of restaurants and shops. So we've got a lot of people walking past our office. So for us, theming has become a really fun way to activate our brand in the area.
I love it.
And along with that, we'll have times throughout the year where the team activate whatever that theme might be. So Christmas is a big one for us, and we get Santa Claus in and the kids come down, and Halloween is another big one. So we have a theme every year. We get a makeup artist that comes into the office and, paints everyone's faces and everyone's dressed in.
Fun.
Yeah. It is fun, but it's another way that the team really learn to bond and connect.
Yeah.
And sort of it brings that vibe to the office. So,
but it ties in your community as well. And I know that's so important for you. And we were speaking just before we started around that element of, that community element of your business.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about that a little bit and what you're doing?
Yeah, I think, we're celebrating 53 years in the community this year. My dad was there for over 45. So, he's been there for as long as, over the almost half a decade, basically. Half a century. Gosh.
I knew it. I didn't even pick up on that. It's all good.
And it's just really important for us to give back. I think we really value the community that we operate in. It's a really close-knit community. I think in COVID especially, we really dialed it up during that COVID piece, where some of the local retailers really, really suffered. And we thought, what can we do to support them? So we do an annual brochure every year where we drive people into, the restaurants and the bars and, all the local retailers to, there's some, gift vouchers to get money off and things, but it's about supporting local, really. Yeah. And we've got some great local retailers that we have great relationships with, and we're always about supporting local. So whatever we can do where there's a cross relationship. We've got a Catching Up with the Neighbours series that our investor relations team runs every month.
I love that.
Where we interview local businesses. We find out a little bit more about them. It gives people an opportunity to find out, behind the scenes what the businesses are all about and what they stand for.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really nice way of bringing, the local community together.
Yeah, it's outstanding what you do. And I've mentioned your socials before. You'll have a few new followers, I would say, after this episode, because everyone will be jumping on to see what you do. But it's also behind the scenes. I know you have, that external experience is really important. But the client experience and what your team do is also really important. And I know a really big focus for you. There's so much, but could you maybe just top 2 or 3 things that your team are doing at the moment, sales or PM, to really deliver that outstanding client experience for your clients?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it has to come down to the communication. So that's really important, because I think in the age of so much technology, that can sometimes get lost. Yeah. And it's a really bad, and even the world that we live in now, where there's so much tech, there's texting and, Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp and all of these tech platforms. The most basic one that we push constantly is about communication and picking up the phone and working on those relationships, because when the tech levels up, the only difference between us and someone down the road is the relationships we've created and the way we've made our clients feel.
Yeah.
So I think that's really an important one. I think we try and, in the sales team, we try and create some really bespoke settlement gifts that we curate with one of our local retailers called Pure Apotheca, and they get, local honey from Summer Hill beehives that are, made in Summer Hill. We've got the tea towels with all of the Inner West, roots on there. We've got the handmade chocolates. We've got, it's a little bit more bespoke. We've got gifts that, after we do an appraisal, we'll drop around some tea that say, enjoy some local tea while you're mulling over your decision to come with us. We've got gifts for our landlords now that we're working on, just as a thank you for coming on board. It used to just be gifts and client experience around, the sales aspect, and we're trying to broaden that out. We leave a gift behind when we've done a routine inspection, with a little card saying, we've been here and here's a little, chocolate. Thank you for having us in your home.
I love it.
So we're trying to broaden it out beyond just that sales piece.
Yeah, lots of little memorable moments.
Yeah.
And I love that you're expanding that into the PM space. So final question for you, because there's been so many brilliant ideas, and I can imagine people listening to this going, okay, well, sounds great, but where do I start?
Yeah.
Because that has taken you 10 years to get to. You didn't start doing all of these things 10 years ago. So where do you start if you're sort of sitting there in your business thinking, I'd really love to get more involved in the community, or I'd love to, start thinking about how we can deliver back for client experience? Where do you start?
I think you need to make sure that your foundations and the basics are done right first. And I think that's why, it took us so long, because the foundations and the basics, there was so much to do there. I mean, we basically broke apart our property management department and built it back up from scratch when we started. And that was sort of the biggest, time intensive project that we worked on, because our business at that stage was weighted towards PM. And so that was where my focus needed to go.
Yeah.
But I couldn't focus on all of the, the marketing and the socials and the community pieces until all of that other, all those other pieces that make the wheels turn are, in good working order. And that means, your tech stack's in place, your workflows are in place, your talent's in place, because there's no point, going out to market with great marketing initiatives or a community piece if you don't have everything working in the back end first. So I think it's always about making sure the house is in order first, and then just really, I would suggest whenever we have our planning sessions, we, Maria and I go to my house, we have a big whiteboard or butcher paper up, and we prioritize what are the things that we want to focus on. And then I think it's about putting them all up so they're visual and you can see them. And then it's about prioritizing where to start, because unless you prioritize, it's just total overwhelm. So I think
end up doing a lot of little things not very well, rather than one thing
and
really well.
You need to do that one thing well before you can start adding on.
Yeah.
So I think
great piece of advice.
Yeah.
Amazing. Tash, you're doing some incredible things. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely outstanding having you on our podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Impact and Influence. Click follow to get notified about future episodes. Leaving a review helps others find the podcast. And to learn more about our courses, our study tours, conferences, keynote topics and our services, or how simply we might be able to help support you in taking you to places you never thought possible, please visit regrowthkyliewalsh.com.